Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. This is part 2 of our interview with Deborah Naish, talking about her new book, Level Up Your Leadership. I am so excited to do part 2 with you because there's a lot of great stuff that we were not able to get to in part 1. So if you have not listened to that episode, please go back and hear about Deborah's background and why she's writing this book and some of the great things that we learned in part 1. I think will be very helpful for you. But now we're going to start into the steps to shift framework. And I'd love to have you explain that. And specifically, I want you to talk about the personal agency piece of that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Sue. And great to be continuing. So this is a framework called Steps to Shift from Complaint to Acceptance to Action. And so again, from complaint to acceptance to action. It's a big one. And I love that you asked me about it. So we as humans are kind of wired, at least most of us, to complain. Most of the time, it's pretty automatic. So I want to say up front, I'm not suggesting you have to stop complaining. That is not the intent. In fact, complaining can be essential information. It tells us some things about what needs to be addressed. And in the previous episode, I talked about it's all information, so you get more context there. But it's important to listen to complaints. They can also be annoying, whether we're complaining or other people are complaining. So the first thing that's important is to notice that you or others are complaining. And let me talk about the second piece that you asked, and we're going to come back to the framework then. So what is personal agency? It's often just referred to as agency. I like adding personal to it because it just seems to make it more real and personal. It's distinguishing what we can change versus what we can't change. So our ability to distinguish what we can change from what we can't change is crucial. And this is really an element that's part of mastering acceptance. Acceptance is the third leadership essential quality that I write about in the book. And that's about recognizing we actually have personal agency in any situation. So even in those moments when we feel like there's nothing I can do, and we all say that, it's not anything wrong with saying that, but our ability to recognize we can act and respond and shape our own experiences, even if we don't like the circumstances, right? So like recognizing there are things we can't change, but we can still empower ourselves. So I like this couple of statements about what does it mean for personal agency. I'm going to share 3 statements. I believe I am responsible for my thoughts, feelings, and actions. Second one, I believe I am not responsible for what others think, feel, or do. Third statement is related to the first 2. I recognize my words and actions can influence how others think, feel, or act. And I do have a responsibility to remember that what I say or do can impact others. So as a result of that, I might need to check in with others to see if I have unintentionally or intentionally affected them. And if I have, that I can address that impact. But how they choose to respond is still up to them. So this recognition that we have an ability to affect what we can do and how we feel. We can always change our attitude, and that's a big piece of personal agency. Does that align as a definition with what you talk about with your clients?
100%. And I actually just put a post on Ellen Taife's post on LinkedIn this morning. So from the book group, the Mirror Door, everyone, if you've heard her episode as well, I'll put that in the links. But what she talked about was a quote about people think that they can't do something or that they're giving away their
Yes.
power. And I was really thinking about our conversation today around personal agency, because that is something I didn't understand, that language or that terminology, until I became a coach. And so I think it is an important thing to start to, I don't know, normalize that or put it out in the
Socialize,
world. Yeah,
normalize.
socialize it. Yes, thanks. Much better word. Socialize it out in the world in a bigger way so that people understand. I tell clients all the time, you always have a choice. Always.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like you don't, you do. But we don't want to give that choice to someone else. And you not doing something allows that to happen, right? And in her article, it was about power, giving away your power. But I think it's the same. You have to make choices that are the best thing for you, but not making one at all also is a choice. Whether you realize it is a choice.
So I'll bring us back to this framework that you read off, the steps to shift from complaint to acceptance to action. And there are 5 steps to it. The first is what I talk about is explore your current reality and be curious. So get really clear on, well, what's actually happening, not the story that's happening, but what's really happening. And there's some ways to do that. The second is, accept where you are. So accept my current reality. I don't like it. I don't like that we have to lay people off. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be the leader that does that. That is the current reality. If your company has decided we're going to lay people off, you have to do that. Or there might be another project you don't like, but that might be the reality. The third is set your intentions. What do you want? What's important to you? The fourth is identify those personal agency options. What can I do? And the fifth is take action. Do we have time for me to tell a little story?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one of my clients, I'm calling her Brianna, was having challenges with a peer. And she herself, she was open to making some internal shifts, to doing some of that inner work. She was really frustrated with her peer, Janice. Brianna had just joined a new department. Janice was a veteran there. Brianna felt undermined. She felt disrespected, and she felt excluded from meetings that she believed she should have been invited to and attended. And she complained to her boss and to other people, and nothing changed. So it was a good topic to talk about in coaching. And we dug deeper into her current reality, that first step in the complaint to action framework. What was actually happening in her relationship with Janice? Well, she was convinced Janice was competitive and not interested in collaborating, and that Janice was taking all of the credit for ideas without acknowledging her. So, viewing the situation through a lens of competition, Brianna found a lot of reasons to believe that Janice's behavior was competitive and would her chance for a promotion. So you could see how easy it is to have a story and you find a lot of evidence for it. We all do that. Sometimes we're right, but sometimes we're missing opportunities to engage. So Brianna took a look at her assessments and assumptions, and she realized that they colored her experience. Assuming that Janice was just competitive, kind of left out a whole bunch of options for what she could have done. And this was the beginning of the step of accepting her current reality. This third step set her intentions. Brianna got to look at, what does she want? Well, she wanted to build a better relationship with Janice, but it was frustrating working with her. So she had to shift and identify where she had personal agency, the fourth step. She could control her attitude and how she interacted with others. She could actually manage her team. She could enhance her own influencing skills so she could level up. She could become more proactive in advocating for her own and her team's ideas with leadership. So she took some action. She made some changes. She did some specific things that changed how they worked together. And in a couple months, Janice began praising her as an excellent partner and highlighted to others how well they worked together on several projects. So it was this simple shift in Brianna's approach and her beliefs. She moved from resisting reality to owning her role in the situation, that part of acceptance, and then taking action. And it transformed how they work together. That's just one example of how you can make a change. You don't have to be stuck in the complaint.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that she picked up on competitiveness and used that as the lens. I love that you explained it that way, because we all find something in our own biases, right? Find something to use to explain what is possibly happening. It couldn't be us. Couldn't be our fault in any way.
Or that I
But
was competitive.
right. No, never, never. So I've definitely experienced that same thing with clients too, and helping them see that there's probably other explanations
Yes.
that could be happening, right? But you just go with the first one that comes to you that seems logical and go from there.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite lines in your book, complaints don't have to be barriers. They can be bridges. I don't think anyone would ever think of putting those two words together, a complaint and a bridge. So
Mm.
talk about that a little bit more.
Okay. So this ties back to we were just talking about complaints are also information. So they're really this kind of clues that are telling you something about what's not working, whether it's not working for the person or it's not working in the system. And they tell us what matters and probably where adjustments are needed. So do you ever think there's nothing to do and it's just how things are? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, for sure. You're just in it.
And I can't do it. And like publishing this book, I self-published, and there's like every moment I was like, I can't do this. There's nothing I can do. And that wasn't true. I had to like chill out for a moment. But that is where we start. So if you can notice that I'm making a complaint and I'm kind of stuck, it feels like a dead end, that is really an opportunity for greater clarity and potential action. So that's the bridge. So the complaint is really the indicator. I gotta like look at this differently and step back here. So I like to say, we know we can't control the weather. Like we don't actually have control, even if people say that we do, but we don't. But you can decide if it's raining, whether to bring an umbrella or not. So it's true in our professional, in our personal life, when we feel or faced with a situation that we can't see how to change, that powerlessness impacts our energy, our mood, our options, and our results. And the kind of complaints, just in case anybody's out there listening, if you ever are saying the process is broken, they're not including or respecting us, we don't have enough resources, we can't do that, the wrong people are on the team, leadership needs to address this, there is nothing I or we can do, nothing ever changes. Those are pretty common. They can actually be true. But if you shift your perspective, you can possibly find a solution. And that's what reframing complaints is about. So if you fall into the space of noticing, you're saying the process is broken, there's nothing we can do, you can use the tool of reframing and say, okay, let's acknowledge the process has flaws, but what specific parts could be improved? Could we test a small adjustment and build from there? Is there something we could do? I'll give you one other example. They're not including us or respecting us. For some reason, I get that a lot in teams that talking about some other team. If that's the case, then you can reframe it and say, okay, let's acknowledge that is what it feels like, but what could we learn from the situation? What's the role we're playing in this dynamic? How could we foster better communication and earn trust? It's not about minimizing the challenge, but it's approaching it with more curiosity and creativity and starting with the current reality. Look for ways to improve it.
What I like about that is it's not looking at it from the big mountain, right? And say there's no way we can deal with it. It's so big. I think that happens in so many companies because there's some
Yes.
complications. It's a complicated world. Things are not always clean and simple in the world we're in. And it's easier to sometimes say, that's so big. Let's just complain about it all the time and then nobody has to do anything with it. But at some point you do. You have to fix the problem and be willing
Yes.
to look at it differently.
Yes, and I love that's another good model, the big mountain. Are we calling this a big mountain? Because
Hmm.
as soon as we can notice that we are, then we can say, well, like what's on the mountain? What's at the bottom of the mountain? What piece of the mountain could we get to? And we can break it into some parts. It's a great other view of how to look at things.
Yeah, it's like going into curiosity instead of assumptions, right? And looking at
That's
it.
exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. The 4 questions that you have in the book, the 4 core questions. I loved the line that you said, think of each core question as a key that unlocks your inner world, your thoughts, beliefs, and untapped possibilities. I felt like that is so what I think about all the time, because I believe in possibilities so much that a lot of people don't spend the time thinking about for themselves or their beliefs or their thoughts. They just run on automatic pilot. So can you
Yes.
walk through the 4 core questions?
Yes. I'm going to be brief here, just kind of giving timing to tell you what the 4 questions are. And there's a lot more that you can find in my book and have some other resources I'll share. But the 4 questions are short, purposefully, so that you can hopefully remember them. So the first one is, where am I? That's a moment to stop and say, okay, what's actually going on for me? What's the story I'm telling myself? So where am I? Get in touch. The second is, what's my role? We'll talk a little bit more about this one. The third is, what's important now? Abbreviation for that is WIN, win. Key, this is something like put a little sticky on your computer. WIN, what's important now, especially when we're overwhelmed and stuck or confused. And the fourth one is, who am I? I started out the book with it being the first one, fundamentally the most important one, but in the structure of the book, it made sense to just put it at the end. Who am I is about, how do my values play out here? What's actually important to me and I need to pay attention to? What decisions am I making here? So these are 4 questions you can use in many situations, particularly when we're overwhelmed, stuck, confused, feeling challenged.
I love them because they are so simple and could literally put all 4 of them on a Post-it note, right? So
Yes.
keep it on your laptop and look at it whenever you need to. I know you mentioned one of them, which was, what's my role? I think that one's a really important one because people don't always think about that. There might be overstepping their role. They might not be doing enough of their role. They may be delegating some of their role to someone else. Can we just talk about that one a little bit?
It is the key one. If you don't take anything else away from my sessions with you, if you're listening, I would say, please think about using the question, what's my role? And I also have this will be another place I have a free download on my website about this question. So what's my role encourages you to focus in on, who can I be in this situation and what do I need to do? So think about it as, we have a lot of roles we play. We generally have a go-to role, but the role we might want to be is, we might want to be a coach or a mentor, or we might need to be the decision maker. Perhaps we want to just be a cheerleader or an advocate. We might need to just be a witness and listen. Maybe it's being a strategist or problem solver. Maybe we have to be the one to remove obstacles, or there's some other role that we play. Asking what's my role versus automatically going to our go-to role, which I would say for many of us is problem solver. It's just like the automatic, let me fix it. If you can stop for a moment and say, who do I need to be in this moment? What's my role? It can make a big difference. Again, it's one that my clients use all the time, and it's transformative. And it's relevant whether you in a one-on-one with somebody, if you're in a meeting, or it's a bigger challenge that you're looking at, like, what's my role here? Do I need to take on more of this? And in the handout that I have, also kind of talk about how to get clear on, what could you be delegating? Where can you be developing people more? What are some options for things that you're doing that you could change your focus?
Love that. See, everybody, I told you this is all brilliant stuff. I cannot wait for this book to come out next month. It's going to be
Thank you.
amazing. So there's another one that I think a lot of people complain about. There's not enough time. I am so busy. I don't have time for this stuff. Let's talk about that one in the reframe people could be using for that.
Another big one. So it's one of my core questions is, what's important now? This piece I just said about when. In this chapter of the book, I invite people to go a little deeper and uncover your beliefs about time and overwhelm. And was very personal for me. So it's something that I worked on for a long time. The whole time management, productivity, may be an area that you, if you're listening, have worked on. A key piece of making a shift in time management is looking at our beliefs and not just our actions. And I, uh, share a tool for looking at limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. So one of those I would label as a limiting belief is there's not enough time. Is my automatic go-to. I don't have enough time to do this. It's not going to get done. I can't get to it. And it's so true, right? Like there's just not enough time, but it's not really helpful to say that. It just feels like a fact when everything feels urgent and you can't complete everything on your to-do list. So I uncovered this process that just saying there's not enough time kept me stuck in frustration and feeling overwhelmed. I realized that the pressure came from how I was thinking about time. So as you mentioned, I reframed that belief. I don't have enough time to do what I want, need, or said I would do in the time planned. So it's all relative. It was a huge shift as opposed to just this like big mountain. Take it back to what you just talked about earlier. Like not enough time feels like all and always. But if you can reframe it to, I don't have enough time to do what I said I would do, what I wanted to do, then that moved me from feeling like a victim of time to being back in charge of how I respond. And the statement is still true. I didn't have enough time. And I still today, like there's many times where I have the same conversation. Time is fixed, but my response to it is where my power lies. I developed more empowering beliefs. So when I hear, and I still do, I don't have enough time, I can't get to this, I have too many things on my to-do list, I'm still subject to that. I can say there is time for what's most important to me right now. And I can make choices and ask for support. And I can renegotiate expectations of myself or others. I wanted to do this. I had to do this by this. Is that true? Maybe even with somebody else. We have more room to renegotiate than we think we do.
Yeah. I love that. It reminds me of the Byron Katie process, the work, where she asked the question, is that true? Right. And if anybody hasn't looked at her stuff, it's amazing. But I think it's so helpful because it's, again, slowing down, reflecting. I mean, that's who are you being in this moment, and just slow down long enough to take a look at that. See if there's something else you should be doing. And what you mentioned earlier, you talked about some of the questions you use. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what is your responsibility in this? And I think sometimes people assume it's everybody else's fault and never look at themselves. Okay, the last part of the book is adopt foundational practices. I think there's 8, correct?
Yes.
Ones, yes. What I loved about this is that you actually start to bring in the conversation about the pause, about getting rest, about the importance of mindset. And of course, resistance still shows up there again. And then getting out of your comfort zone. You have a cute little picture of the different comfort zone areas. So I know we don't have a ton of time, but could you give maybe even just a high level view of the foundational practices and why you thought some of those needed to be there?
Yeah. There are many possible things that could be foundational practices. These are my top 8, and they touch on so many aspects of our life. So I'm going to talk just about 3 of them real quickly. So one is this mindsets matter. And you've all heard about mindsets. We tend to think about mindsets as being on endpoints. There's this or that. So we are in a scarcity or abundance mindset. And I love the idea of expanding that to think about mindsets on a continuum and that they're context specific. So if you lean towards a scarcity mindset regarding time or money, so again, I had both, but I could also recognize that I had abundance in relationships. So it wasn't like I was only in a scarcity mindset. And I have become much more abundant in time and money from a mindset. So I list a number of things in the book, serious and playful, victim and owner. Things tend to feel difficult, believe it can be easy. So your ability to recognize, where am I in the continuum? It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I feel like that is a big piece of mindsets. I do a bunch of things about looking at our relationship with mistakes and failure. That's a big part of the growth mindset. So we go a little bit deeper into that in the book. Another one of the foundational practices is embrace resistance. So we talked about in the last session about the resistance monster, like our own resistance and the resistance of others. And you pointed out, so I'd love to share this. One of the tools that I use is a quick, fun way to evaluate what kind of resistance am I really facing and what's its impact on me. So I'm going to share the 3 T's. I think that was
Yay. I loved them.
okay. So the 3 T's came about. I kind of started looking at resistance, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, and in a deeper way. And I was like, wow, like there's not one kind of resistance, and could we make more distinctions about it? So I came up with the 3 T's, and they are Teflon, Tempur-Pedic, and Tornado. Let me tell you what they stand for. So if you can identify, is this Teflon? It's the kind of place where Teflon doesn't stick. It's easy to navigate. Things can slide off and I can keep cooking. So can I just stay curious and engage with others? Can I allow the resistance to just kind of roll over me and not stick to me? That's a Teflon experience. You just get calm, you get centered, and you stay present. Tempur-Pedic, most of us kind of know that's that pillows or mattresses, and it's a foam that molds to your body and it kind of goes a little deeper. The resistance feels a little more intense. Maybe it's like a punch, and we sink into that Tempur-Pedic. So, but can I bounce back like Tempur-Pedic does? Can I adapt? Can I share more context? Can I be in dialogue? Can I really notice I'm gotten affected, but I can stay present despite the pressure? And the third one, tornado, really important. It's not a good time to continue. Like the tornado is here. There's intensity and chaos. Things are swirling, and it's time to seek shelter, not to engage. So noting when we need to pause and step away is important, and recognizing I could come back. I could return another time. So asking yourself, which of the 3 T's is relevant for this situation? Teflon, Tempur-Pedic, where I can stay engaged, or leave because it's a tornado, can be really helpful.
Yeah. See, those are so cool. I love that you came up with those words. Anyway. Okay. I know you have one more, so I won't interrupt.
Okay. One more, last one I want to talk about is another foundational practice. And this one is near and dear to my heart, as are all of them, but get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I recognize, and hope we all do, that our comfort zone is an important part of our lives. It's where we're cozy, we're safe. It's a good place to have, and it's an important place to be in. We need our comfort zones. But the other key that's important is that growth happens outside of our comfort zone. I say in the book, it's where the magic happens. You may have heard this before. And what I found was important for me is recognizing in some zones, I was already really comfortable being uncomfortable. So in the workplace, if there was a challenge or something I needed to tackle, put me in there. I'm going to go figure it out and make it happen. I'm really fine with being uncomfortable. But in physical domains, I wasn't. And that I shared in the last session about a story of me climbing a 35-foot pole and jumping off it way outside my comfort zone. And the term obstacles make me stronger, OMMS, some mantra that kept me going. And it was that stepping outside of my comfort zone, but more than just stepping out, it was being able to get comfortable that I was uncomfortable, as opposed to I needed to be comfortable outside my comfort zone.
Mhm.
So that was the big distinction for me. And I know that it can be true for others, like just willing to change our mindset that it's okay to be uncomfortable. If you grew up doing sports, you probably already have that in your body. Maybe you don't have that in the workplace, or maybe you do and you've been able to translate it. But those are the pieces that we want to shift.
Oh, it's so brilliant. I cannot wait for everybody to read the rest of them because there's, 5 more you have to learn about everyone. But I think it's simple again, but not easy, right? And that is the big message. Getting into understanding about yourself is not easy. Spending
Yes.
time wondering who you're being is not easy, but important to do if you want to really be a great leader. and you have to slow down in order to do that. So,
That's
amazing.
great.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So, everybody, let's just talk a little bit about where everyone can find you and to find your book again. Level Up Your Leadership is the name of it. It's coming out officially on September 17th, but you can find it online on any of the online places you buy books. And I don't remember, did you say, are you doing an audiobook and ebook as well?
I have an ebook available
Okay.
now for
Okay.
pre-order and will be available. And I hope to do an audiobook, but it will be a little while until it's
A
out.
little later.
It's
Okay.
in paperback and on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, any place that you buy books.
Excellent. Excellent. And where can
Thank
people
you.
find you if they want to learn more about you?
My website is really easy. So it's Deborah Naish. It's NAISH.com. And you can find out more about me and the work that I do and more about the book on that website.
Excellent. Okay, everybody, we're going to go into the Rise Up and Be Visible quick tips. These are 4 questions that I ask every guest. And I'm excited to hear Deborah's answers because she's been bringing up visibility throughout all of these conversations that we've had in the last episode as well as this one. So let's talk about her visibility. So what do you think visibility is and why did you answer that way?
I want to say there's like so many different aspects to it. So the piece that I zoned in on, because you have a whole book about it, is just taking the time to be intentional about how we show up and recognizing it's not about being perfect, thank goodness. It's about being curious about who we are and who we can be, and curious about how people perceive us.
Love that. What are you doing to be visible?
I'm doing things that I haven't felt comfortable doing before, being on this podcast, first one, although this has been quite fun. So I'm happy to be like moving into that more comfort zone. I did a bunch of things in the past couple of years that all related to the book, writing a book, posting in social media. I was definitely not that person. Applying for an award, expanding my network, making requests, like asking people to help me promote my book. I'm still hesitant about that, but I need to do more of that in the next couple of weeks. So I am doing things to help me be more visible because my intent is that I have a book that can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to make it more available.
Absolutely. And I hope everybody can hear that in what we discussed in this episode, but also the last one. I think there's just so many things that can help people have better experiences at work, for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
What is some leadership or career advice you've received that's been helpful for you?
So, because my book is all about leadership and career advice, I'm like focusing on one thing that was critical. I was spinning, I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, work was out of control. I called a friend who was a coach. He wasn't working with them at the time, but he was a coach. And he said he's going to give me advice. It's the most important thing that he could possibly tell me. And that was take a bath.
Wow. That was not what I was expecting you to say.
I know, right? So it was really a reminder that what I think is important at the moment is probably not that important, and taking care of myself is. And I have a chapter in the book on rest and replenish. And take a bath is an important reminder that I say to myself constantly, whether I physically take the bath or not, it's the message behind it that was critical.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's brilliant. I love that. Okay. And what is a book you would recommend? I know you recommended a couple in the conversation, but anything else you want to share?
I'm going to say another one of our friends here, A Defy by Dr. Sunita Shah. And it's really because it was resonant for me, partly because I spent all this time looking at resistance. And she talks about this true yes and being a hell yes or a true no. I just believe being able to say no, building up capacity to say no and hear no is crucial to our
Mhm.
personal and professional success.
Yes, love that. Her and I used to write together every morning when before her book got to where it is now. Every morning at 7 a.m. Central, we were writing together. So I was working on my book. She was figuring out what she wanted to do to get an agent and all that kind of stuff at that point in time and proposals and stuff. And so I feel like I've
Fantastic.
been on her journey with her and I was so, so thrilled. She has a 2-part episode as well. So I'll put that in the show notes, everyone, so you
Great.
can hear that because she is another brilliant individual from our group who has made some big, big strides out in the world around defiance and learning how to say no and being okay with that and giving yourself permission to do it when you don't think that you have it.
Absolutely. I didn't know that connection with you too. I mean, I knew you were
Yeah.
connected to her, but I didn't know it worked.
Yeah.
writing together. That's great.
Yeah, I've been on the journey with a lot of people
So
to
fun.
to see all this fun stuff come out for sure. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing a 2-part episode. I think this is going to be so helpful for people to be able to really dive into both episodes and learn a lot about what's coming out in your book. And there's tons more in there, everyone. You didn't get everything today. She didn't give you everything. There's a lot of stories and a lot of examples that I think are really important to dive into because it helps you understand it even more and how to apply it into your work world and to what you're doing. So thank you for writing this book, Level Up Your Leadership. Find it online anywhere you're looking, and look forward to an audiobook at some point in the future. And anything else you want to add before we stop?
Can I add one thing? Just
Sure.
inviting people to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So as I'm trying to be more visible.
Yes, of course. Yes, and I'll have all her links in the show notes as well. Yeah, she has been doing a great job at putting stuff out on LinkedIn, and I know it's not her comfort zone, but I am really impressed that she's very consistent. She's putting some great stuff out there, and you're going to learn a lot from her through that, through her book, and everything else that she's doing in the world. So thank you for
so
being
much.
you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining today on the second episode of this wonderful interview with Deborah Naish and her wonderful book, Level Up Your Leadership. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.